This is Wynne Lewis. Christ in St. Luke's Episcopal Church is a treasure. It is first and foremost an Episcopal church of an Anglican tradition that represents the very best in that tradition's extraordinary poetry, music, worship, and beauty. It's also an iconic building that frames our community and enhances the beauty of the Ghent neighborhood of Norfolk. It's an artistic treasure which represents both religious artistry and also the beauty of music in an extraordinarily lovely setting. And finally, Christ in St. Luke's is a welcoming community that sees itself not only as a parish church, but also as a kind of cathedral for the entire Norfolk and Hampton Roads community. We are called in this generation to care for this treasure, to enhance it, and to make sure it is passed down to future generations intact and strong. I'm happy now to introduce our senior warden, Mr. Ray Gindros, who will talk a bit about the process we've been going through for the care, preservation of our buildings, and for the vision for where we can go in the future.
We are now in the third year of the process of finding the best ways to preserve our legacy and to plan for the future. In the first year, 2013, we conducted a dot process in which we asked people what they liked best, what they liked least, and what was the most important thing to improve. Green dots were given to everyone to place on the best places in the parish complex, red dots on the worst places, and blue dots on the places most in need of improvement. The upper left, which is almost all green dots, is the worship space itself. The lower right is Lloyd Hall and the connection to the parish house, and it has an astonishingly large collection of red dots and blue dots. This led us to a shopping list of improvements, which we then presented to the parish, and once again, people placed dots on the most important items to be implemented in the near term. The results can be seen in these images of before and after images of the parish complex. On the upper left, we see Lloyd Hall from Bossavan before, in the middle left, Lloyd Hall from Bossavan afterwards. In the upper right, Lloyd Hall from Stockley Gardens before, in the middle right, Lloyd Hall from Stockley Gardens after the renovation. And on the lower left, the tortuous connection between the parish house and Lloyd Hall before and after its transformation, simply with brightly colored paint, into a dramatic and, we hope, interesting connection. In 2014, we were able to rehabilitate some spaces which had not been used for many years and turn them into usable spaces. There's a teen lounge above the kitchen and a wonderful new classroom meeting room on the second floor. That now brings us to year 3, in which we need to look more clearly to the future in order to take the next series of steps. We're running out of these small-scale improvements that can be done without having an understanding of how the overall future of the physical plant fits together. So there are 6 items on our shopping list. Still a shopping list, it's just bigger items. Number 1 is the organ and the church repair. 2 would be parish house repair. 3 is to consider a new entry to facilitate access for disabled persons. 4 is to find a replacement for Lloyd Hall. 5 to find what to do with the Bossavan property, and 6 to deal with the Litchgate Garden. Kevin Kwan, our organist and choir master, will summarize the report of the organ committee with its recommendation for finding ways of refurbishing and expanding the organ.
Hi, I'm Kevin Kwan, and I'm here to talk about the current state of our organ. And before we do that, we should examine what the role of our pipe organ is at Christ in St. Luke's. Not only is it an integral part of our worship, but it is an important part of the local arts community. Groups like the Virginia Chorale and the Norfolk Chamber Consort, the Virginia Arts Festival, and the American Guild of Organists regularly use our instrument, and so not only does it serve our parish, but the wider community. Built in 1963 by the Cassavant Organ Company of Canada, The organ was enlarged and partially renovated in 1997 by the Laternal Organ Company, with over 70 ranks of pipes on 3 keyboards or manuals and pedal. The organ has about 3,500 pipes in 2 chambers high in the chancel. Gravity, the lack of temperature and moisture control, and the deterioration of the chambers have taken a great toll. We believe it is now time to take corrective action before things get worse. So what are the issues? Safe and proper access. As you can see in the picture on the left, access to the chapel chamber is by use of a freestanding and somewhat unstable ladder. This is the only access and not for people who are faint of heart. Once you get into the main chamber, access throughout the organ is very cramped. You can see from this picture that the ceiling insulation is beginning to separate. The picture on the left shows the window above Selden Chapel, littered by debris, broken glass, and covered by a torn piece of plastic sheeting. The picture on the right shows a wall that has been damaged over the years by water and possibly by termites. The deterioration of the walls and ceiling causes debris to fall into the open pipes and throughout the rest of the chamber. Pipe overcrowding is one of the main issues. You can see in the picture on the left, the ladder is placed right next to one of the pipes. This ladder is the only access to the rest of the chamber, and any time someone goes up this ladder, they bend the pipe. Metal fatigue is also an important issue. Over the 18 years that these pipes have been in place, the sheer weight of the pipes themselves have caused them to collapse. These pipes are made out of spotted metal, a very heavy alloy, and over these years they have started to bend. Eventually they will collapse. This side-by-side shot taken in 2013 and then later in 2014 shows just how quickly a pipe can collapse, rendering this pipe totally unusable. What are some of the other problems? Leathers, individual leather pouches that allow air to go into the pipes, are now over 50 years old and need to be replaced. The wiring needs to be updated so we are not vulnerable to lightning strikes and other electronic deficiencies. The organ console, which is where the organist plays the organ, also needs updating. After an extensive process, the organ committee has found Foley Baker Incorporated of Tolan, Connecticut to be the best company to rebuild the organ. Primarily a maintenance and reconditioning firm, Foley Baker has an excellent reputation. Their projects include Trinity Church, Boston, Duke Chapel in Durham, and the National Cathedral. A few months ago, Stephen Leist, a member of the organ committee, and I traveled to Duke Chapel to inspect the work of Foley Baker. What we found were truly amazing results. The organ chambers were immaculately clean and well lit, which is a must for organ technicians. The organ was logically laid out and organized. You can see how meticulous they were, down to how they tied all of the wires together. This is a side-by-side comparison of a pipe that we currently have at Christ and St. Luke's and a pipe at Duke Chapel. Same idea, with a scroll in the back of the pipe, one that has been haphazardly repaired and another that has been beautifully done. So the proposed work for Christ and St. Luke's includes the construction of new chambers, one to relieve the overcrowding, re-leather the entire organ, rewire the entire organ, clean the instrument, repair or replace the damaged pipework, update the organ console, and build a new chest for uniform mechanics. At the same time, the organ chambers, the rooms where the organ sits, will be repaired and insulated so that the drastic change in temperature will not affect the organ as much as it has been over the last 20 years. This picture shows the possibility of building a new chamber where the window currently is. To relieve overcrowding, we are investigating the creation of a new chamber behind that window, which is where the current music library stands. Here is the music library on the stage of the Children's Chapel. This room would create valuable real estate that could house some of the bigger pipes in order that the other chambers would be less crowded. The projected cost of this project is $1.4 million, plus the cost of a new chamber, so it is estimated to be around $1.5 million. For comparison, the replacement value for a new instrument of similar caliber would be at least $3 million. We are living on borrowed time. Now is the time to restore the organ for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin, for that very clear presentation of the work needed for the refurbishing and expansion of the organ, as well as some of the architectural modifications that need to be made to accommodate that work. Now, when the organ is out of the building, it is by far the best time to do other needed repairs and cleaning in the building. When the organ is in place, it's important not to create a whole lot of dust with this kind of work. So therefore, we believe that while the organ is being improved, other architectural improvements need to be done at the same time. These include repairing stained glass windows, repairing and refurbishing the pews and kneelers and floor in the building, enhancing the lighting, cleaning and repairing the stone. I think it's important to recognize, as Wynne said in his initial introduction, that we have an extraordinary architectural heritage in this building. It is a legacy for us and for the larger community. Influenced by the work of Ralph Adams Cram, its architects created a new kind of Gothic architecture, the turn of the last century, that is truly one of the most magical and beautiful spaces in the entire country. Part of the great treasure house that we have is the collection of stained glass windows. They have been quite well maintained over the years. We recently had a survey done and found that the majority of them are in good condition. However, the survey also indicated there are at least 4 windows which need to be removed, taken to a stained glass studio, and repaired. There are various problems: slipping of the glass, softening of the lead, bowing of the windows themselves, as you can see in the image on the left, sliding of glass within that needs to be taken care of. The longer we wait to do this, the more serious the problem will be and the more expensive it's going to be to accomplish the repair. The pews and the kneelers are something which we hear a great deal of complaints about from people. Splinters sometimes loom up in the seat, and the kneelers are both uncomfortable and wearing out. They need to be repaired. The floor, particularly in areas where some pews are removed, occasionally presents some tripping hazard. The wood floor in the middle is constructed on sleepers above the concrete floor below, and those sleepers are rotting away and giving way. And so therefore we have floors that are squishy and occasionally floorboards that pop up. Now the floors, the pews, and the kneelers all need to be done at the same time, in which the kneelers and pews are removed and sent to a shop to be worked on, and the floor is repaired all at one time. Lighting is another issue. We are becoming increasingly a performance venue, and one of the quirks of the lighting system is that the spot where performers most often stand, right at the bottom of the steps to the chancel, is one of the few dark spots in the lighting system, so that sometimes it's impossible to see soloists and performers. So lighting, practical functional lighting, needs to be provided. Some of the lighting for the choir is inadequate, and there have been over the years makeshift solutions such as bare bulbs on extension wires that need to be plugged in every time and which are certainly not effective but also could be potentially dangerous. Then there's the question of architectural lighting. Gothic architecture is meant to soar. We can see the image on the right of St. John the Divine in New York, where the light of the nave is uniform from top to bottom, emphasizing the height of the building. For some reason, the lighting at Christ and St. Luke's is more down lighting, and the ceiling emerges as dark, and we lose part of the quality of the architecture. The exterior of the building has wonderful architectural detail and has some general floodlighting, but recent advances in technology make it possible to highlight the various architectural features in an even more dramatic way, making even more out of our landmark building in the community. All of this will require new wiring. Some of the wiring is old, needs to be updated. Some of the stone has become quite dirty as a result of roof leaks and water penetration through some of the joints in the stone. Therefore, it's necessary to clean and repair the stone, and years of too much heavy wax on the floor have resulted in the staining of some of the stone, as seen in the image on the lower left. So this collection of architectural improvements, which should be done at the same time as the organ, is a kind of shopping list that we need to respond to and need to raise the funds to be able to do it. How do we put this work in the context of the future for the church complex? We do believe it's important to develop a shopping list that looks 10 to 20 years into the future. Item number 1 on this list is the organ and the church building itself. We know, in addition to that there are much needed improvements to the parish house. We can continue with the small scale room by room projects for a while, but it's impossible to go further without knowing where future expansion is going to take place. One of the first things we know has been important in previous processes is the need for disabled person access and a more gracious entry into the complex. We have had discussions about replacing Lloyd Hall with new improved education facilities and perhaps choir rehearsal facilities. And the Bossavant property across Bossavant is one that holds some potential for the parish. We don't know what. We've not considered that in any of the planning to date. And the Lichgate Garden is in need of some improvement. So if we could develop a master plan that has a series of manageable efforts, small-scale projects, medium-scale projects, large-scale projects, that could be implemented over the next 10 to 20 years, we would have a framework that would make it possible to plan for the future and also help us tremendously in attracting funding. For example, we intend to apply to the State Department of Historic Resources for historic tax credits to help fund the organ and the repair of the church and perhaps the parish house. Tax credits can provide 25% of the cost of a facility like that. When you finish with all of the expenses that are involved with it, it's probably 20%, but that's still a significant amount of money. The process for obtaining it requires a long-term master plan. We are aware of various grant programs that are available. In order to be able to effectively apply to those, we need to know how each different project relates to the other. Therefore, we're asking for your help. In the dot process meeting on the 15th of February, we're going to ask you to take a look at this list, which is the preliminary list of all the items that have emerged in processes in previous meetings that are needs in the church. And we'd like to ask you to review it, discuss it at individual tables, to apply green dots on the most important ones, perhaps red dots on the ones that are the least important, so that we can move forward in this process of developing a master plan and have some sense of what the most important items are for us to move forward with. Thank you.